Hello. Welcome to this video. We are diving into a personal project I've been working on for quite a while. I've made a couple videos about this, and the topics that we've covered up to this point for this automated trading system that I'm building is data management primarily. So we've talked a lot about how I'm grabbing data from the Gemini exchange. I have some automated pipelines in Google Cloud, the Google Cloud platform, that are running on a daily cycle and pulling minute level cryptocurrency data from the Gemini exchange, storing it into a BigQuery database, and then building some views based off of that, doing some other batch Python jobs to kind of develop some useful features. And now finally I'm at the stage where I'm starting to build some really barbaric models. So what we're looking at right now is in the top, we have some pricing data, and we're looking at Bitcoin right now. We can see the list of symbols over here, and we're on Bitcoin. And then there are also different time frames where the time frames just mean for each dot, for each point on our x-axis, how much time is between each of those points. So if you look at 30-minute, data at the 30-minute granularity, that's going to be a little bit more frequent than, looking at the daily level or 6-hour or the 1-hour time frame. Anyways, so we have the kind of actual prices up here on the top, and these aren't the actual prices. These have a little smoothing function applied to them, because in order to build a model and in order to build a trading system, one of the key things that I'm looking for is, can we detect relative points of a low price and relative points of a high price? You might even be able to tell here that there's a different coloration in this line, and the orange part is kind of giving the indication that this is buying territory, like we are in a buying attitude. And then all the blue lines, I got that reversed. The blue ones are saying we're feeling like buying, and the orange are saying we're feeling like selling. It doesn't mean that we would buy or sell at any of these points. It's just there to illustrate that, there are several kind of features, several flags, several indicators that are built into the underlying data that I'm using to try to drive this trading system. And one of those very basic ones would be, when do we feel like buying? When do we feel like selling? Now down below, you can see the actual outcomes of decisions that the first iteration of my random forest model is coming up with. The blue dots indicate points where this model would say, hey, this seems like a pretty good place to buy. And we can, for the most part, I can say I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think me and the model are seeing eye to eye, which makes sense. I mean, maybe not as eye to eye right here. I'd like to see this down, but you can't be perfect. One of these things, I like to see this, because if I saw everything being perfect, that would tell me that this thing is maybe being overfit. And what we're actually doing to train this model is we look at data from other symbols, so not even Bitcoin data, and we train the model to pick up patterns. And the way it learns, this is supervised learning. So we go through, and I will have a lot of points of interest, and I'll spend lots of weekends and nights drinking a nice cold beer or a glass of wine and just looking at these points of interest and labeling them myself, saying, yes, this is a point where I would have bought, or no, this is a point where I wouldn't buy. And then I make enough of those data points to where I can train a model, and the model ends up coming up with the conclusions that we see here, where all the red dots down below are points where the model said, no, thank you, not interested in buying here, which I'm pretty sad that it decided not to buy at like this point. We can all shed a tear for this, what would be a profitable place to buy. But this is the first iteration of the model. So it's pretty encouraging to me that already this thing is seeming to make some pretty decent decisions, especially when we compare it to like a year ago when I first started getting into this, made a very dumb system that would only look at, are we at a local minimum or a local maximum? And if we were at a local minimum, so that's like one of these little dips, then the bot would say, do we have a trade open for this currency? If we don't, I'm going to buy. And that might seem nice if we're looking at these points, but in reality, sometimes it would buy like up here, or it would have just sold and then it would hit the very next local minimum and it would buy again. And that's really just kind of not efficient and not very profitable either. And a tax nightmare because you're not making any money, but you're buying and selling crypto. So the government thinks you're making money. So this is something I just pulled the plug on it. I said, all right, let's get smart about this. Let's rethink this. And so this is how I'm rethinking it. I want to make the system smart enough to have, in general, above average, or a majority of the time, I want it to be making the right decision. A decision, and the right decision would be it's buying in a place where the price is going to go up maybe 3, 4, 5 or more percent, which will put it into that profitability zone where then we can sell and we can collect a profit, and the bot or the trading system can enter back into its buying cycle and say, okay, I'm waiting for another attractive point to buy. With all that said, I figured we could just take a look at another currency. So here was Bitcoin. We have the Mana coin. So this one's got a lot of activity recently. It's with the whole metaverse thing. This coin is something that people use to buy property in the metaverse, not Facebook's version of that, but in Decentraland. And this coin is just skyrocketed lately. We could actually, just for laughs, let's move this over to the right. You can see this thing's just absolutely exploded recently. But that's not what I care about as much right now. I care about looking at how is the bot making decisions on this data. Again, this one would have been trained on data that is not the Mana USD or Mana, depending on how many board games you play. But we can see that we have a dip here that it bought. Nice. My data collection process kind of collapsed for a little time period here, but pretty sure that this was a little spike up. We can see it also collapsed here for a couple of weeks while I was on vacation and never got that data back. We can shed a tear for that. But we look at this at these purchasing points. Again, I'm pretty happy in general with what we see. Not perfect, could use a little polishing. Definitely get in there, see what we can do with these models. But a pretty good start. And so right now it's a random forest model. I also want to test this thing out with some neural networks. So I want to throw PyTorch at this and open the door to adding in some error functions where we can say, okay, what decisions is the model making that weren't so good, and maybe go back through and adjust the weights of the network according to the error. I also want to play around with reinforcement learning, and ultimately I want to just find something that's doing good enough and deploy a better version of that dumb trading system that we put out there last year. So I really like looking at this stuff in Tableau. That's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. I think it's really useful to instead of just putting myself in a box of looking at traditional metrics in a table, like your precision, your recall. Like precision being how many of the times did the bot or did this trading system say, yeah, let's buy? And then how many times did I in the actual true labels say, yes, let's buy? Something I don't like about that with this specific application is there are lots of places where, for example, you see these two dots that are super close to one another. These are both attractive points to buy. Like this, just because the system decides to buy here, which technically isn't as good as buying here, doesn't mean it's wrong. I like both of those moves. So it's kind of hard to come up with a really strict way to evaluate how this thing is making decisions, other than just eyeballing it. This looks to me like in general, it's making some pretty good decisions. So I prefer kind of visual approach to evaluating that. And of course, at some point we'll have to do the traditional evaluations. But at this early stage where we're just playing around with stuff and kind of throwing this into a sandbox, I don't want to put myself in that box. So said box twice. I don't want to just limit, artificially the boundaries for how I'm evaluating how this thing's performing. So I'm really liking looking at this in Tableau. It's also making it really easy for me to play around and look at other currencies and symbols and time frames and see how this is performing. So if this stuff interests you, tune in some future videos. I'm definitely going to be coming back and after exploring the neural network approach, also after exploring maybe some other additional features that I'm going to throw into the mix. There's tons of technical problems going into this, and I think that there's lots of really cool stuff we can talk about. So hope to see you in future videos, and hopefully a bunch of other really nerdy people like me found this interesting. So see you around.